As a leader, have you considered how the stories you tell yourself and the self-judgment you play over and over again in your mind is affecting your success as a leader? According to our guest, Susan DRUMM of Meritage Leadership, we all have a playlist that is running in the background that is actually acting as a ceiling to our leadership effectiveness. And Susan will share a process to uncover that playlist, which is impacting your success, and explain how music can interrupt that playlist, and then share how to leverage music to be a better leader. She'll help you make better decisions by widening your lens of perceptions in the moment rather than filtering data according to your old neural pathways. She'll help you attract others who are committed to a mission as much as you are, and scale your teams and business success more efficiently by being more effective at influencing and inspiring as opposed to defending and controlling. And lastly, she'll help you develop deeper and more meaningful personal and work relationships so you are a powerhouse leader. So stay with us. Welcome to Shedding the Corporate Bitch, the podcast that transforms female corporate executives into powerhouse leaders by showing them how to shed the challenges and overwhelm, along with any fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negativity holding them back. I'm your host, Bernadette Bose of Ball of Fire Coaching, bringing you powerhouse discussions each week to share tips, advice, and sometimes tough love so you create the riches in your work and life you deserve. Let's do this. Welcome to Shedding the Corporate Bitch, the podcast that transforms female corporate executives into powerhouse leaders by showing them how to shed the challenges and overwhelm, along with any fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negativity holding them back. I'm your host, Bernadette Bose of Ball of Fire Coaching, bringing you powerhouse discussions each week to share tips, advice, and sometimes tough love so you create the riches in your work and life you deserve. Let's do this. Susan, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to talk about this leaders playlist. Very unique, very different. And as I read, redefining leadership out in the world. So we have a lot to talk about. But before we get into all of that, though, I would love our listeners and our viewers to really understand who Susan is. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I'm a seeker of adventure and fun and charting a different path than most. And if you look at my background, you'll probably like, wow, you've done a lot of different things. And so I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I love to hike. That's one of the reasons I live here. But I usually only live here, what they say about Scottsdale, 8 months of heaven for 4 months of hell. I should usually get out during the hell. My family's on the East Coast, so
Nice.
I spend time. And I have a toy Aussie. She's about 15 pounds, and we'll hike together. She's a little powerhouse.
Oh, nice. Love that. Mine's a 15-pound Chiweenie.
Oh, it's so cute. I love it.
Yes, they would probably be best of pals.
Yes, they would.
Yes. So we're a dog family, both of us here. So that's awesome. Awesome. Well, as I said, we're going to be talking about the leaders playlist. And I love this idea. But the idea that I came up with when I first saw it and what your unique approach was very different. So help us first to understand what is the leaders playlist as far as a process, as far as redefining leadership.
Yes, for sure. So I use the term playlist both figuratively and literally. And so figuratively, we're looking at that you actually have a message that you're broadcasting out to the world, whether you know it or not. And that message has to do with your internal beliefs about the world and about yourself that were formulated way back in childhood. And they are patterns that continue to show up in your life. They show up in the form of experiences, but it's sort of what you say about life. And we'll get into examples of these, but let's say, for instance, I had a playlist of I am treated unfairly, at least definitely in some of the personal relationships and some of my history there. And I didn't know that I had this playlist broadcasting. I just kept having these experiences that, like, by any means, anyone that would look at this would say, yeah, this is like, why does this stuff keep happening to you? Wait, like this, like what? But you have to take responsibility for the way things are showing up in your life. And this is when I got really clear that emotions are vibrational. They can measure emotional frequencies 3 feet off your body. The heart is the largest source of electromagnetic activity off the body, and its electromagnetivity can be measured 3 feet off. And they have seen differences in that signal when you're feeling happy and excited and when you're feeling depressed and, sad. And what I help leaders do is understand the pattern or rut that keeps potentially showing up in their life. They may not even see that it's a pattern, but I can pretty much guarantee you that whatever you're experiencing now, that you're bumping your head up against a ceiling, has its roots. We will find evidence of that same emotional pattern happening, maybe in different circumstances now, but the emotional pattern, we can probably find a thread. And so we're both identifying that through your figurative playlist, but also literally using music to shift that vibration. Because music is vibration. And music, what I bring into the book is the impact of music on the brain and how it lights up all regions of the brain. And it allows you to form new neural pathways in the brain faster and more efficiently than without it. So we can get more into that, but let me stop there.
Yes, absolutely. We can get more into that. So, all right. So I'm going to split this into figuratively and literally, that our emotions or vibrations, and we're sending something out, and the playlist is both figuratively and literally. So first, figuratively, because I experienced this myself, and actually it's triggering me from many years back. And if I, to kind of make sure I understand it, it's almost as if you go out with a scowl into the world, like a scowl on your face into the world. You're most likely going to get that scowl back. You're most likely going to get negativity back if you're putting negativity out. If you go out and smile into the world, you're most likely going to get smiles back. Is that a simplistic way of looking at it?
Yeah, it can be. That is a simplistic way. I think, look, all my conscious intentions were never to go out into the world and experience unfairness. Like, I would never say, if you knew me, you'd be like, you're like upbeat, you're a happy person. Like, that's not you. And yet, why did I keep having some experiences that, because I had a belief subconsciously, wasn't even conscious of it, that is the potential in the world. And that is how the world will reflect it back to me.
Interesting. Because, okay. All right. So mine was too on the nose, as they say, whereas yours are those subconscious, subliminal, deep-seated the beliefs, as you said earlier, that are then percolating. So somebody, before we get to the music side of it, which sounds fascinating, but how someone recognize that in themselves if they don't have a Susan, if they don't have the Leader's Playlist, and the book, you can all get her book, The Leader's Playlist, on Amazon. But how would someone kind of get a clue that that's what's happening?
Yeah. So I in chapter 12, I do take people through basically a 7-step process to figure that out. But let me give you, maybe the best is to give you an example of what I highlight of a leader went through this process. And because I also want to tie it now to leadership, right?
Right.
So there was a leader who chief marketing officer at a biotech company. Her name was Deborah, and for all intents and purposes, right? And she got 360 feedback that she was having trouble connecting with her peers. And her peers felt like she was aggressively trying to insert herself into other parts of the business in a way that wasn't helpful. And, she would get upset when she wasn't invited to certain meetings or wasn't copied on certain emails. And her point of view is, look, I'm chief marketing officer. I need to know what's going on in these areas so that we can be successful. Well, that sounds so absolutely logical. But what I want to understand is, well, why is this showing up in your life, right? So I would identify first, where's the place you're essentially bumping your head up against a ceiling? Like, what's the place where you just feel like, I don't understand why this is happening? And I asked her and then connect to, and this is what I asked her to do, connect to the emotion she felt when she got this feedback or when she felt left out of a meeting or whatever was going on. And she said she felt angry. She felt basically left out, excluded, like I feel excluded from what's going on.
Right.
And that led into frustration, right? And so then I asked her, well, where else is this pattern showing up in your life today? Are there other places where you feel excluded and where you get angry? And she said, well, actually, yeah, when I'm divorced and when the kids go to my ex-husband's lake house, which I used to be a part of, I feel excluded. And it's hard to hear about because I don't get to go there anymore and share those experiences with them. Okay, great. Where else in your life? And we could see some patterning going back to college when she didn't get into, she was excluded from the sorority that she most wanted to get into and the anger she felt there, all the way back to childhood where her sister was the one who got all the attention as the sort of blonde, vivacious one. And she deemed herself sort of the mousy, quiet, shy one. And the neighbors would fawn over her sister and she felt like she was invisible.
Yeah.
And so what we could see is there's actually a pattern. What's happening today has its roots. And you don't necessarily have to go all the way back to childhood.
Yeah.
I
Right.
will tell you, if you want to do deeper work, there's probably a link there, but you don't have to. You can just see, where else is this showing up? Maybe in the last 5 years, right? And so we identified that she had a playlist going of I Am Excluded. That was what she called the title. And so what we want to do is what I say is that's just kind of like a neural pathway that's been grooved in so many times. It's your 8-lane highway to hell. So all you need is a triggering event and you're speeding down that highway, right? She's left on this email. There it is again,
Right.
And what we want to do is use music to interrupt that pattern, first of all. And so I asked her, what song best represents this feeling to you, this emotional resonance of I'm excluded? And she came up with Adele's Hello. That song, like, hello, can you hear me? Like, I've been calling 1,000 times and you won't pick up the phone, right? And it's like this kind of, so what she could use this for was then to just notice and build the awareness of when she felt that trigger and she's starting to go down that highway, there's Adele again. Okay. So now we need to take the fastest exit, right? And we need to build up an equally strong neural pathway. Well, how do we do that? And that's where the second part of the process comes in. So let me just pause there before I get into that.
Yeah, it's fine. Right. So one thing that's jumped out at me, because I did have one of these experiences, especially it was greatly influencing and negatively impacting my corporate career. And I did have to go back all the way to when I was like 3, 4, 5, being that I was like the stepchild, not literally, but I was like the milkman's daughter, the postman's daughter, one of 12 kids, didn't look like anybody, blah, 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 blah. And the story that I was telling myself, my playlist was, I am adopted. I don't belong. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that carried through all the way
Yeah.
into my 40s.
Yeah.
So question for you, when you're working with these senior leaders, and a good many of them have kind of grown up in the, like, leave your emotions at the door, leave the baggage at the door, that type of thing. How do you get them to tap into this, this personal, deep side of themselves to where they can uncover that? Even if, like you said, we just need to go back 4 or 5 years, even
Yeah.
uncovering and peeling back the onion, acknowledging their fears and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
How do you, from your expertise, how do you go about helping them with that so our listeners and viewers can feel comforted and supported through that process?
Yes. It's we just take whatever's coming up for you right now. That I say, what is it you want to shift? And you've had a belly full on, like, meaning, like, I don't understand. I'm struggling with this issue. And we really get to, again, what emotion does it bring up in you? And we work with that, because the emotion then behind that is just a belief or a mindset, right? It's an assumption or belief. So uncovering it, what is it that you say about the world, right? Or what is it that ultimately you're saying about yourself in this situation? And for you, it was like, I don't belong, right? What is it you're saying? So if you actually do have that running as a playlist, you can do all the stuff you want. But life is going to keep showing you and mirroring you exactly what that broadcast is that you're sending out there.
Right. All right. So you have the support system in place and the steps in place to help them with that. So let's go to the second part of the process where, you help them find a song that kind of resonates with the feeling that's coming up for them. What do you do next with them?
Well, now we want to decide how we can use music to speed up building a different neural pathway. And if you know anything in the book, I go into music's impact on the brain. If you know anything about how it's being used in therapy for late stage Alzheimer's patients, where they literally come alive and they're unresponsive and they put their favorite music on and all of a sudden they're talking or singing. There's a measurable increase in eye contact. And this can be seen on an MRI where all of a sudden what's happening is neural pathways that have been dormant are reconnecting. And that's why sometimes, and that will last up to 20 minutes after the music stops, even before eventually they kind of go dormant again. So I took this concept of, wow, if music can do that, and we know music can shift our state, which is why we work out to music, right? And that's the simplest form. Music shifts the way that we work out, it's going to get us going. What I'm suggesting is we can use music at a much deeper, powerful level to interrupt old neural pathways, ways of being that aren't serving us, and create new ways of being faster. So how we did that, just continuing on with Deborah, is I asked her, what do you want to be feeling instead of the frustration and the anger and the I'm excluded? And she identified that she wanted to feel that she brought peace and appreciation to her encounter. And so we actually titled, this is her choosing, we titled her playlist, her new playlist, I Bring Peace and Appreciation.
Oh, nice.
And so the work for her then was to identify music that causes her to feel that way, right? That puts her in a state as close as possible, right, and peace and appreciation, and reminding her of those things and who she wants to be. And then her job was really to look for ways in which she was included, not excluded, but included. As human beings, we think we can see 360 degrees like a chameleon, but we can't. We have a central vision and peripheral vision. So where we point our focus of attention, that's what we see. But there's something behind our head we can't see. And that's what I'm trying to illuminate. But also, if you just tend to practice looking elsewhere, you'll see that the world broadens for you. So she started noticing that she created this playlist, an actual playlist of songs that she would play in the morning when she first woke up, that she would definitely play outside walking when she got her exercise, that before big meetings or big events that where the old playlist would likely be triggered.
Right.
She also there's lots of different ways, and I detail them in the book that people have used it. Another way is, you're in the middle, you've gotten triggered, and you kind of just have similar to like, there's Adele's Hello. Oh, here's what I want to be. There's this song, Gratitude. This is, how I want to show up in the world.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And remembering, oh, yes, this is, or let me just, like in my mind, it was Bruno Mars' 24 Karat Magic. I'm like, well, if I come as that is way different than I'm treated unfairly. Let's party start. So I could be like, oh, yeah, 24 Karat Magic. Let me bring that now.
Nice.
Right? So I don't actually be like, stop, let me listen to the music. Go ahead. Although you can do that if you need to, if you have, the opportunity.
Right.
But there's still a way to use it, even if you don't use the music, once you adopt and get yourself off the old pathway and onto the new one.
Is it fair to say that it's similar to someone having like a mantra or an affirmation that when they get triggered, they kind of, bring that mantra or affirmation except in this way, it's with music?
Yes, because music's going to be more powerful than just a mantra alone.
I agree. I mean, I love this. I mean, I absolutely love this because one, I love music. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And we can probably all pick, a song or two, if not a dozen, that completely shifts our mindset, and we go to it when we kind of need, or when we hear it, we're brought back into, a nice memory or, a past experience or encounter, which is very kind of, I'm just getting very pumped. I'm getting, peace and joy, not so much right now, but I'm getting energized. I'm getting energized.
Yeah.
And so when I could see how using that with Deb, for instance, one-on-one, what does it look like when you're working with the teams? And I am assuming you work, you do this with teams as well as with individuals. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yeah. It's an opportunity for them to share. It depends on how much trust is in the team, but a lot of times it may just be sharing what the new playlist is and what is that core song that means the most to them and why. So often the teams will explain what that is and get to know in a way what you're working on. If the team has more trust and background, we'll talk about the old playlist too. But it all depends on where the team is in terms of its strength of the communication and trust and bonds, whether I do both or I just do one.
Right.
But what I also do with teams, so if you take a look at the book, as I mentioned, chapter 12, before chapter 12, there are short stories, there are 9 of them, that give examples of different leaders' playlists, what they did, and how they shifted it. And we actually have a QR code where you can get the actual playlist that they use. So it'll take you to the Spotify playlist that we have to give you ideas and inspiration, all of these pieces. But reason that I go through these stories is because there is some tie to the Enneagram, and I'm been working with the Enneagram for over 10 years. Are you familiar with it? Should I share a little bit? I'm not sure.
No, you should share with our listeners and our viewers. But yes, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, great. So the Enneagram is the way we use it with teams and individuals is to really uncover what your leadership style is. It's a shortcut for us to know where you're motivated to look, your focus of attention, which is what I was talking about earlier with the chameleon analogy. Like, where do you tend to go all the time? And that's a superpower, a strength of yours. But also, what is your blind spot? And it really helps illuminate your path of growth. And so when teams can do this work and understand each other's leadership style, and then it's broader than music is a way to shift and grow that. So I might introduce that then, but first we're going to get a much deeper understanding of where you tend to look and where I tend to look. Because, in the actual model, it's not just an individual. It's very different than DISC or Myers-Briggs or things that it gets lumped into, but it's very different because it's looking at why you do what you do, not what you do, but why you do it. But also it has the interconnectivity piece. It's how we're all interrelated. Not just, okay, I'm a ESTP. And what does that mean? And, oh, you're an INTJ. And so how do I relate to you? Like in a team setting, that was never very powerful. And I've been doing this for 20 years. So I've worked with all of them. But with the Enneagram, I can see if I'm looking this direction, there's someone else looking this direction. And they can argue it's yellow, it's yellow, it's yellow. And I'm arguing, no, it's green, it's green, it's green. And we can come to loggerhead and have conflict. But the model shows you why they see it as yellow and how that actually benefits you. And that you have something to learn from them and they have something to learn from you. So it takes conflict and really shows you how to build cognitive diversity on a team. Okay. That differences in perspectives actually create better decisions. And that's the powerful part, that when teams really get and understand that they learn how to grow from each other in a better way, how they're connected, and how the best teams really are. They have multiple perspectives and they use that in a way to come to the best answer.
And so that's being set as a foundation allows them to have that trust level to then work on their individual playlist, past and present or old and new, and then share, what that playlist might look like today.
Yes, exactly.
Now, you mentioned that we would talk about the old playlist. What's the significance of the old playlist to then what that new playlist is?
Well, that would be if the team had some of that level of trust, it's the vulnerability to say, where have I gotten in my own way? I mean, can you imagine in a team for Deborah to say, I realize I've had this old playlist of I'm excluded. What do you think everybody around the room was going? Yeah, we know, right? But it's so refreshing to hear you see that, right?
Yeah.
And because everyone else can see it. It's like, wow, okay. And it's this moment of sort of, because if everybody's doing it, sort of vulnerability, like, yeah, we get you. We get that can be a tendency of where you go. And we really want to support you in creating this new neural pathway so that you're not experiencing that anymore. And we recognize that you have a sensitivity to being excluded. So we want to do things to at least somewhat take care of that to our best of our ability. We can't take responsibility for it.
Right.
But we can have some sensitivity about it.
Right.
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 And I think that it builds that level of empathy that's really important for teams to have.
Of each other and of the group as a collective.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Is it the music that makes your approach unique, or what is it that makes the Leaders Playlist process unique and potentially redefining leadership as a whole?
Yeah, it is the music, because I haven't really met anyone using it yet in this way.
True.
And to be able to more quickly shift, right? To shift on dime, you can actually use music to do that. And I think it's also this ability to apply this incredibly powerful model called the Enneagram, which no one owns the Enneagram. It's a more an ancient system of development. To apply it to leadership development, to all the specific competencies. I mean, we can help people understand how to delegate better, how to give feedback better, how to manage conflict in a better way, how to inspire. And we've got it all mapped based on your leadership style. Here are your strengths. Here's what you need to work on. and who can best support you, meaning who other types that can
Right,
best support
right,
you.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating. So what would you leave our listeners and viewers with as far as all of this information is powerful and it definitely appears to be very transformative. And sometimes change gets overwhelming for one. But what would you say is one step or one thing they can kind of, other than buying your book, and I want everybody to go to Amazon and look for the Leaders Playlist, you'll find it, and get her book and really learn and understand how you can leverage music and the Enneagram into your practice, but also reach out to her at susandrum.com as well. But what would you leave them with?
Pay attention to the next time you're triggered by something.
That's good.
And jot down what are the emotions you're feeling. And then jot down what are you saying about the situation. Usually there's, they just don't get it, or I'm all, I have to do everything myself. What is the, like, if there was a refrain, what would the refrain be?
Right.
Right. And that's your clue to the old playlist, because underneath that is, and what do you have to believe about yourself for that to happen? There's an I am statement there. I am what? I am all alone. I'm excluded. I'm treated unfairly. I am not good enough. What's the I am statement? And that's the start to your uncovering your old playlist.
And help me, the new playlist, is that an I am too? Or
Yeah.
it is an I am, but it's obviously a different I am. But it is, both of them are I ams, but you want to recognize what's old and then shift it into a new I am.
Yes. In the case of Deborah, she said she wanted it to be I bring peace and appreciation, but many other leaders, it's another I am statement.
Okay.
Right? Mine was I am empowered. I went from I'm treated unfairly to I am empowered. And I can tell you that till to this day, every time I hear that 24 Karat Magic song by Bruno Mars, it just reminds me how empowered I am.
Yeah. No, and I'm hearing it. So I can understand and relate. That's awesome. That's awesome. Susan, we have so much we could cover here, but that was a beautiful and a powerful, kind of introduction for everybody, but they can go deep with your book, The Leaders Playlist, as well as I do want everyone go and follow her too. And she makes it really easy for you at DRUMM Leadership. You can follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and X, Twitter. Of course, look up what exactly she's doing and learn more about the book at susandrum.com, but also make sure you get the book on Amazon, The Leaders Playlist. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. This is why I love what I do and I love talking to all of these amazing, amazing people, is because you learn something new each and every time. And today's conversation with powerhouse Susan Drumm of Meritage Leadership, the whole idea of music being embedded into the workplace as a way of bringing team members together, minimizing stress, bringing down the emotions that might occur in a conversation or in a meeting or in a very difficult situation that is going on, I just think is just so awe-inspiring. Because picture this. Picture you're in a meeting and you're working through strategy. You're working through planning. Maybe you're working on, the hiring structure or the current team organizational structure. And there's a lot of disagreements coming up, a lot of conflict coming up, a lot of emotions being raised, a lot of tension, a lot of just, uncertainty. Maybe there's even nothing. Maybe that meeting is just falling flat and no one's really engaging and contributing and connecting with each other, because maybe there's also, disconnect amongst the people in the room. And so you as a leader say to yourself, I need to get control of this and I need to shift what is happening in this room. And so instead of letting it continue and fester and brew, you say, hey, let's take 30 seconds for a minute. Let's take 30 seconds to a minute and tell me something. What is a song that really gets you in a great mood? What's a song that really kind of gets you energized and moving? And you have like a 30-second to a minute conversation with the group in regards to that. And then you pull out your handy dandy phone and you find that song, on one of the streaming services, and you play it. And you give the room an opportunity to kind of take a breath, calm down, re-energize themselves, focus themselves, get aligned together because they're all in the same, mojo. And you're using music to shift out of your current state into your other state. Because we know that when we're in a bad mood, we play certain music. When we on our way out to have a good time, we play certain music to get us all energized. We know that we use music in our social and personal life. Why not use it in the workplace? I just love this whole conversation with Susan. And she, talked about the fact that music can serve as a tool to build empathy. And and I took away from that is you may not have a lot in common with the people that you work with, but most likely from a music perspective, you may. And from an understanding, the empathy, from an understanding of the other person, nothing better than music bringing you together with that individual, no matter how different you are with them. And therefore, you can walk in their shoes by understanding kind of what do they enjoy from music? What do they take out of it? What do they listen for? Is it the tone, the lyric, the mood it creates, the experience it gives them? And you're all of a sudden getting, aligned with them. I just love this whole conversation. Yet at the same time, there's a lot that goes into really trying to help understand yourself and then understand other people so you can be the best leader that you can be. And so if you have any challenges or questions, or you just need some tips and strategies beyond our conversation today, as far as how can you be a powerhouse, effective, successful leader, then be sure to reach out and let's have a conversation. You can go to coachmebernadette.com/discovery call. And I'd be more than happy and actually honored to give you some tips and strategies you can use right away to kind of shift out of your playlist, especially if it's negative, disparaging, and pulling you down, into more of a very empowered, confident powerhouse of a mindset. So feel free to reach out, schedule some time with me, coachmebernadette.com/discovery call. I am so honored that you were here with us this week, and I'll look forward to having you right back here for another episode. Take care, everyone. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Shedding the Corporate Bitch. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and even LinkedIn to stay updated with the latest episodes. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and our Shed the Bitch TV YouTube channel. Lastly, if you liked what you heard today, please give us a thumbs up, leave a review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep shedding those bitches of fear, insecurity, and doubt, and start creating the riches in your work and life you deserve. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Shedding the Corporate Bitch. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and even LinkedIn to stay updated with the latest episodes. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and our Shed the Bitch TV YouTube channel. Lastly, if you liked what you heard today, please give us a thumbs up, leave a review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep shedding those bitches of fear, insecurity, and doubt, and start creating the riches in your work and life you deserve.